Hey, I'm Dustin.
And I'm Steve. Welcome back, listeners, to the finest phototainment in the world. That's right, you're listening to another episode of the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast, an irreverent look at wedding photography. This podcast, like aspirin, will help you recover from your wedding hangover. Dustin,
Steven.
I am 2 weddings deep into this wedding season.
You're like a professional photographer or something.
I try to be.
I have my first wedding back next weekend, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous.
Dustin, I've noticed something about myself, something I never thought would happen. And the last 2 weddings, I've come right home from the weddings and I just Mr. Rogered.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was a beautiful day in the neighborhood and just came home and just Mr. Rogered. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope, no idea.
I did not realize I was doing it when I did it.
You come home, you put your cardigan on, and then you slip on your comfy slippers?
That's exactly what happened after both weddings. I didn't even think about it, Dustin. It was crazy. I got home. I came into the house. I took off the shoes I wore when I was shooting. I put on comfortable shoes. I took off my suit jacket, and I was like, oh, it's a little chilly in the house. And I put on a cardigan. 2 weeks in a row, Dustin. 2 weeks in a row. And then the real kicker was, one of those weeks, I got home early enough that Ian still had a friend over. And so then that friend's dad came over, and I talked to the dad. I talked to my neighbor, you know.
Will you be my neighbor?
My neighbor left, and he went home. And then Nora was still awake, and she got out Ian's old train set, and we played with a trolley.
You are Mr. Roger reincarnate.
I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what happened in this life, but I gotta say, I'm surprisingly loving it. I mean, it's fantastic. It's like the best feel I think I've ever had.
Milk and cookies right now?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Speaking of what I might be eating or drinking, Dustin, do you want to talk about beer talk? For the first time in like 2 months, you actually have something in front of you in a glass bottle that's brownish and isn't Kool-Aid. I mean, cider. Sorry.
No, I'm drinking a true American Belgian white known as Blue Moon. But no, what I wish I was drinking right now is the beer that I bought to share with you, but could no longer resist, which was a Dragon's Milk Reserve s'mores flavor from New Holland
How could
Brewing.
you do this to me, Dustin? How could you do this to me? You know, Dragon's Milk, one of my favorite beers of all time.
Now one of my favorite beers of all time.
Quite possibly my wife's favorite beer of all time. How could you drink that without me after buying it for me?
I bought it for you for Christmas. We are now in March, so it had been sitting in my fridge 3 months. It had moved from my old house to my new house, survived the move, and Steven has still not graced me with his presence in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
You know, in February, Jen and I went to our friend's house, and they had bought us Dragon's Milk for Christmas. Not this Christmas, but the previous Christmas, they bought us the Dragon's Milk. And we've seen them multiple times since then, and they just kept forgetting it. But you know what they gave us at this party we were at in February? They gave us the Dragon's Milk that they bought for us, Dustin, because when you buy someone a gift, you save it and you give it to them. You don't drink it yourself. What?
I saved you the bottle, so that way you could snap a photo and say that you drank it on Untapped.
I'm not going to do that.
I will explain the flavor
All my
profile
check-ins on
to
Untapped
you.
are real. Dustin, I changed my name on Untapped. Did I tell you that?
No.
Do you want to know what I changed it to?
Not really.
I changed it to Great Indiana Man.
Oh, God. Oh, Steven, speaking of great Indiana men, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, Dustin, tonight I am drinking a Wild Range Brewing Company India Pale Ale.
Is that in honor of India Earl?
No, it's not.
No.
You know, an India Pale Ale is just a type of beer, right? And there's millions of them out there in the world.
Gotcha. Didn't know if there was a correlation.
No correlation. You know, I would say this Wild Range Brewing Company India Pale Ale, it's very good. It's a little bit hoppier than I usually like my IPAs.
Say that one more time with a little Borat.
I don't know.
It's very good. No, that wasn't it either.
Nope, it's very nice, I think is what you were looking. Very nice.
There it is.
Yeah, but a little bit hoppier than I would like for
Little too
IPA.
Peter Cottontail for you.
Yeah, you know what it is. I'm just not into the bunnies. Dustin, you got some follow-up for us. Follow-up trademark John Syracusa. Thank you so much, John, for letting us use that. Dustin, your follow-up is all about that purple mattress. So
I just wanted to let the listeners know that, I'm a week further in to laying on this luxurious mattress, and I'm still loving it. Still loving it. In fact, we had friends over yesterday who'd been considering buying one. They took a little lay down. There's nothing quite like having somebody lay on your bed.
Well, I realized once I got married that the only real way to gauge whether or not you like a mattress is to, of course, have the carnal relations on it. Dustin, did you have an orgy with your friends?
Carnal relations. No, I
Did you engage in carnal sin so that your friends could figure out if the purple match? Oh, gosh, I can't even keep this up, man. Woo.
No, I haven't. But if you and Jen, if that's how you test out your mattresses, if you could let the listeners know that do listen in the Indy Noblesville area, what mattress stores you shop at, so they can avoid them, that would be great. Or they frequent them now. I don't know.
Yeah, I heard people seek those mattress stores out, to be honest. But, actually, the last few mattresses we bought have all come from the internet.
Yeah, do it in the privacy of your own home, roll it back up, and send it back.
You don't like it, what else are you going to do?
So if anyone gets a Casper mattress and it's a little crunchy on top.
That's disgusting. I think they legally have to burn those when they come back in.
Legally?
Legally.
They don't ship them off to other countries relabeled as Amazon Basic.
That might be something that happens. Who knows? Dustin.
Steven.
We got some topics tonight.
Rant me up, buddy.
How are you getting ready for this new season that you're about to kick into? What you got on your mind this week as you ponder this next wedding?
Haven't really given it a lot of thought. The couple, I'm meeting them for the first time this weekend. Mm-hmm. And so it's a video wedding. So
do you normally meet your couples for the first time this late in the game?
For video, yes. For video, we typically book without meeting because 9 times out of 10, they don't live here locally. Mm-hmm. And then I try to meet with them the week of the wedding to record their letters to one another. So I don't try and stress them out on the wedding day or have a photographer try to hijack my time.
You mean so you don't hijack a photographer's time? I think that's what you were trying to say there.
Well, it's because the audio is really all I'm after. And so if they can come over to my house wearing yoga pants and sweats and we can just record the audio really clean, really good.
Oh, you know what I like to do when a videographer is trying to just record that audio real quick of the bride or the groom, just reading off that letter. Mm-hmm. Maybe they just got done with their getting ready photos and now they're just going to sit down in some beautiful window light and just read off that letter that they wrote. And I just like to take my camera, turn silent mode off, put it on burst mode, and just right in the middle of it. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah. And that's why I have them come over to my house a week before the wedding. So that when we put them in that beautiful window light and they read it on the wedding day, I can just worry about capturing the visuals. I don't even have to worry about them reading it out loud.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't have to worry about getting the mic out of my bag. I don't even have to worry about anything other than just whatever the photographer wants to do, wherever they want to put them. I say, great, now this is what we're actually going to do.
The great thing when you're the photographer about when the videographer pulls the person aside to do the reading of the letter, that's when you get to take like just a little break, like maybe 2 to 5 minutes. And those stolen little breaks are just so glorious throughout a wedding day.
If you're Steven, you just kind of close your eyes and you take a little cat nap.
Wake
me up when they cry so I can zoom in. Thanks, photog. Oh,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah, you know
I'm
how
not
we do.
recording audio. Don't mind my snores. Sorry, I have acid reflux.
Wow. It's almost like you've slept in the same room as me on multiple occasions.
What can I say?
Almost like you know my life. That was harrowing noises that I just heard. Wow.
It's all right, Steve. It's what I'm here for.
So, Dustin, when you shoot this wedding as a videographer, are you going to have a second shooter?
Yes. I'm gonna have my greatest Indiana man, Mr. Luke McBride. Second shooting.
No, let's roll that one back. What did you call him?
The greatest Indiana man.
What did you call him?
The greatest of Indiana men.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve. Someday you'll get that title. When you live in Indiana, more importantly, Fort Wayne. A true great Indiana man city.
So you're bringing a second shooter with you. What do you like? If you were to say like send something to a second shooter, and you're like, look, I just think you should read over this to like see if you can fulfill my expectations for the day.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say is like one thing that you and possibly every other photographer, videographer would send over to that second shooter? Are there any like things that you feel like you just pick up on from every single blog post you read about second shooters?
Perfect question. I always send them some oils, some good oils for when they come on the wedding day. I really like it when they loosen up my traps, my shoulders, really get in on the glutes, before the ceremony because they have all that gimbling.
Plus, I find when their hands are a little bit oiled up, they run more smoothly over the camera and over the lenses.
For certain.
It gets you in kind of like a real good flow for the day.
Absolutely.
You need that kind of a light touch where you just glide over the buttons. That's how you know you're going to get a good shot.
All of my second shooters, they come equipped with a catheter because I don't allow bathroom breaks on wedding days. We bring a little like ninja blender. So when they bring us the dinners, I throw theirs in the little ninja blender and I mix it and I put it in a little sippy cup. And then I tell them, get back out there. I pour it into one of those little like backpacks with the straw so that, I can enjoy my dinner. I mean, it's not necessary for both of us to be shooting all of the time.
Yeah, just one of you. And that one who is shooting all the time, do you maybe put a little salt or pepper into the backpack with the smoothie for them or no?
A little cayenne
pepper.
Cayenne? Really, really gives a little pep in their step, you know what I mean?
Yeah, give them a few Depends to get them through the rest of the night then too, right?
Well, yeah.
Not everybody's stomach can handle that.
Yeah.
Dustin, the reason I brought this up, which you were trying to avoid, and thank you so much for that. That was calming and a relief, which I needed because I'm very angry. I have seen like 4 or 5 blog posts people have put online in the last week about, hey, I just want to tell you what, a good second shooter does. And every single one of these I read is full of like good stuff. Like, you got to show up on time. I expect a good second shooter to show up on time, which is like, yeah, every person who, hires somebody and employs them to work for them expects their employees to show up on time. And then it's stuff like, I expect you to be professional and courteous and to treat guests with a certain amount of respect throughout the entire day and, not to make my business look bad. And I expect you to dress appropriately for the job at hand and not show up in sweatpants and, sneakers. But the one thing, the one like unifying thing that just pissed me off about every single one of these that I've seen, and that has pissed me off about every single conversation about second shooters, is this.
What is it, Steve? What is it?
People, stop saying that keeping the lead photographer hydrated is a necessary thing for a second shooter to do. Your second shooter is a fucking working professional. They're not your caregiver. They're not your servant. They're not your mom. Take care of yourself on the day. It is not someone else's responsibility to care for you. Also, for hiring a second shooter based on whether or not they will feed or hydrate you. It's fine if they want to do that. It's a nice little bonus if they're at your side and they're like, hey, I noticed you haven't got any water. Here's some. But it's bullshit, absolute bullshit, to say they need to do that or that it's a requirement of what you look for in a good second photographer. You're a worthless this. People who say it.
Can you give me like a little mic drop sound? No, it's terrible. You have to have that in post. No,
I don't know, Dustin.
That was like your butt cheeks slapping together. That's what that sounded like.
Dustin, you can see I have a very strong opinion on this.
So listeners out there, so what this stems from is Steven has shot a lot of weddings thirsty, and no one has ever offered him a drink. And that's led to him becoming an alcoholic, which has led him to starting this podcast with me.
The only drinks they ever have at a wedding are alcohol, unless you have a second shooter to run and get you water. That's right.
If any of you out there have ever sent us an email, it always comes back, stay hydrated. Steven and Dustin. That is what it says. Because we here at the Wedding Photo Hangover, we care about the listener's hydration. And that's why this strikes a nerve with Steve, because he feels that if you can't care about your own hydration, then you probably shouldn't be worrying about hiring someone else to care about it for you.
Absolutely. If you're not going to take care of yourself, why should somebody else do it?
That's why you hire your wife to be your second shooter. Or husband. Or both. If you're into that kind of thing.
Hey, we are a wedding photography podcast. We're not a religious monogamy podcast. So whatever you want to do, Dustin.
Mm-hmm. We have a strong listener base in
don't say it.
Utah.
Oh, gosh. Well, there went all of our listeners in Utah. Son of a bitch.
So while we are talking about things that dissatisfy us, Steven, when you, I'm sure, like myself, are getting flooded with phone calls and inquiries for the upcoming wedding season for this year, maybe some for next year, some for the year after that. I don't know. You guys are crazy over there at JVE Photo.
That's not the name of the company.
I know,
That's
but
not the name of the company.
It really rolled off the tongue there.
I think at one point in time we owned the URL JVE Photo.
I'm pretty sure your wife has a logo that is JVE.
Might be, yeah. See, when she was starting her business, she was going to call it Jennifer Renee because she liked the way that rolled off the tongue. But there are already a lot of other companies called Jennifer Renee in existence. So then she was thinking maybe she would call it JRV, just use her initials. But then it sounds like she's saying Junior V. Like when people read it, they're like, oh, Junior V. And she didn't like that. So JV, Jennifer Van Elk, stuck.
I like it. Van Elk has a very luxury vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dutch luxury.
If only the actual Van Elk of that equation lived up to that luxury.
I'm just the descendant of the boy who stuck his finger in the dike, so saved all of Holland.
Back to what I was asking, Steve. When you get these phone calls, okay, when these people call you, traditionally, are they the bride or groom in question?
Like, if somebody calls me, is it the bride or the groom? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
A lot of times it's a wedding planner.
Okay.
But I know you've said in the past on this podcast, there's not a lot of wedding planners who work in the Fort Wayne area.
There's none.
Or at least who are willing to work with you, seeing as you have said that when a couple goes with you, they don't need to hire a wedding planner because Dustin and Corinne take care of that.
Yeah, there's nothing more awkward than a conversation I had like a week or so ago about yeah, you guys don't need to hire a wedding planner if you go with us. I'm like, oh, that's weird. We're actually meeting with a wedding planner tomorrow. I'm like, oh, walk that back.
I cannot wait until they meet with that wedding planner, and the wedding planner goes, that was so weird that Dustin would say you don't need a wedding planner because I do my job so well, you don't need a photographer.
Somehow I did that. Doesn't work like that.
Oh, I think it does, Dustin. I think it does.
So what I'm trying to get at here, Stephen, is we had recently a bride's sister-in-law call in inquiring for her, and this has happened on several occasions where we'll get like a bride's mother. That's totally fine. I understand that because they're paying for it 9 times out of 10 for us. And we've gotten like a bride's maid of honor. But this was such a weird scenario. The bride's sister-in-law called in, not even that close with the bride. Called in.
Are you saying she's not that close to the bride, or did the bride call and tell you
No,
she's
because
not
I
that
said,
close?
well, I made the comment. I was like, oh, you must be like the maid of honor or whatever. And she's like, oh, no, I'm not even sure if I'm in the wedding. And
What?
yeah. And I was like, okay, can you tell me where the wedding is and all the, the details? And like, she barely knew anything that was like going on with this wedding. And I'm like,
did she cut you a check? That's the only thing that matters.
no. And so like, the thing was, I'm like, okay, like, we're available that date for next year. Here are prices. And then anyways, I felt like she was calling me for therapy. So she called me because what she really deep down inside she wanted to do was complain about what a terrible experience she had with her photographer, which is why she took it upon herself to make it her mantle and her mission to essentially eliminate all the bad photography choices for her sister-in-law before she called, because she was
Please tell me that her photographer was a little photography company that doesn't go by this brand name anymore, called McKibben Photography.
No, and that's like what I was waiting on is like that caveat of like, oh, was I your photographer? But no, I was sadly not. But like the things she was complaining about were like things that were totally normal, like the photographer posing the bridal party in a different order than what they walked down the aisle in, and getting exit signs in the dancing photos in the background. And I'm like, were there exit signs over the door? And then was the dance floor next to like an exit? And there, she was like, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, did you tell the photographer that bothered you enough that you would like that retouched out of your photos? And she's like, well, no, I didn't.
Wait, so this lady called in to complain to you about her photographer and to try to, I guess, book you as the photographer for her sister-in-law?
Yeah.
Without her sister-in-law knowing
it.
But
Conversation. I left so angry that I was like, why do you waste
either way
my time?
Is a potential client, and when the potential client said something like they didn't Photoshop, or they took photos that had exit signs in them, your response wasn't to say, wow, a good photographer would have just shot from a different angle, or some bull crap response like that to try to keep her on the line, keep her interested. Your response was to say, challenge. Where did you plan your dance floor to be? Was it next to an exit? I think you're the idiot. You thought your photographer was an idiot. I think you are.
Pretty much. No, I approached it with, obviously we try to avoid distracting elements in the background where at all possible, but obviously we can't always control when moments happen and where they happen. And if a moment happens that we feel needs to be captured, and there happens to be an exit sign, a handicap sign, something just obtrusively obnoxious in the background, we're still going to take the picture. We're not going to look at that moment of daughter and dad embracing for the first time, tears coming down, and thinking like, oh man, there's a bunch of traffic cones in the background. Guess we're going to skip that moment.
Why did they have to do the first look with the father at the manure plant? Oh, everyone's crying. It would have been beautiful, but there's just turds all over.
Just turds. Black and white it goes.
That's just dirt in the background. A little muddy.
But yeah, I just felt
Some
like
corn
this
in it,
need
too.
to like educate her at the same time as like bolster our company, because like I didn't want her going back to this potential client and just being like, oh yeah, they're like totally just said they'll give me rainbows and sunshines. I wanted her to also feel like a little bit educated. about like how we approach the process and how we handle everything nuts and bolts. You know, we like to be really upfront and honest with our clients about how we do things. So anyways, that's my rant. That's my end. Has this ever happened to you? Do you ever get a sibling or maid of honor or somebody who calls you saying that, you know, they're trying to cut through the minutia of the 100 wedding photographers that showed up on their Google search, and so they're trying to narrow it down to like 5 for their best friend?
Did you take the 5 seconds it would have taken to play Detective Dustin and do, you know, maybe a Facebook search on this girl? Or did this happen on the day when Facebook was down for everyone? It was planned, wasn't it?
It did happen on the day Facebook was down.
She is a photographer. She wanted to know more about your business, how you run your business. And when she saw Facebook was down just for a sweet little second, she pounced on her one opportunity to really grill you without you having a chance to figure out that she is a photographer herself.
Named Stephen Van L.
Yep.
So I take that as your answer is no, you don't ever have.
Dustin, I have no idea.
Because your wife handles the phone.
Most of the phone stuff, that is correct.
Most of the phone stuff.
I'm more of a hand person, you know. I'm a hands-on kind of guy.
You get the handsy stuff. She gets the phone stuff.
Yeah. She needs a little distance. We've had a few instances where we've had somebody call us who's like looking for a photographer for their friend or whatever, and they just want information, and then they're going to relay that information to their friend to help their friend make a better, more informed decision. And I think a lot of times what that comes down to is somebody's like, my friend, my sister-in-law is really stressed out, and I'm going to take it upon myself to try to relieve some of that stress. And sometimes that's really awesome, and the potential bride is super pumped they have a friend who did that for them. And sometimes it's really not awesome, and that potential bride then doesn't want to use any of the photographers that the friend talked to because they don't want the friend to think that they had an impact on their actual decision. So it's just a weird place to be, but, you know, I guess it's no weirder than any other conversation you have with a potential client's potential friend.
Got it. Love it.
Potentially.
All right.
You could book something.
Maybe. We'll
Potentially, maybe not.
Tell me about this one photographer who loses her shit on a client. Because the link you sent me does not work.
Oh, the link I sent you did work, Dustin. But whoever posted it took it down. Oh, shoot. They might have taken it. No, here it is. It's still in the Facebook group. All right, Dustin. This comes to us from the St. Louis Area Photographers Facebook group. A photographer signed up to take a workshop teaching session with another photographer.
Okay.
The day they were supposed to have this workshop session, the weather was bad. Yes. So the session was canceled.
Okay.
So now this photographer and everybody else is out $100 because the person who planned it canceled the thing and has not rescheduled. 9 months goes by without anybody hearing anything else about what had happened. And then after that 9 months, this photographer who was slighted, who had their workshop canceled, we'll call her Bree. She sees the photographer who is doing the workshop. We'll call her,
or him,
Ibat. We'll call her Ibat. Ibat's Photography. There we go. Got it. Got it in one. Ibat's Photography. Just an acronym for the actual company.
And now for a dramatic reading.
So Ibats posted back in May when the thing was supposed to happen. Hey everyone, I'm going to be offering a photography class, and it isn't just for professionals. It's for anyone who has bought a camera and really wants to learn how to work it. And Bree responds to this 9 months later and says, hi, I was looking for the group about rescheduling this teaching session that was canceled. Can't seem to find the group or any information on rescheduling in the near future. How do I go about receiving a refund? And Ibats maybe we could call her like Heath, I guess. Heath says back to her, "This was incredibly unnecessary. I'm not offering refunds. The weather was out of my control. When I get time to get it together, I absolutely will. And you're welcome to come, but please don't do this again. You could have very well messaged me, and you know that." So she's mad. She's a little mad.
Why didn't she just message?
I don't know. But probably because it'd been 9 months, and that's a really long time, so she's feeling a little bit passive-aggressive. And she says, "Look, I'll reach out when a new date is scheduled and offer you the chance to come on that new date, probably when it's warmer. But please, don't even bother messaging me back. That was extremely tacky. I honestly don't even want to work with you at this point. Who does that?" At which point, Bree says to Heath, after seeing that the group was deleted and that there has been no communication about rescheduling after 9 months of the event being canceled, I can't have confidence in receiving what I paid for at this point. I understand you can't control the weather, but this is an unreasonable amount of time for us to wait. And it seems a refund is the best way to resolve this for both of us. And then he says, "I'm not giving refunds. I'll be rescheduling the class. You can come or not. At my caliber, which you probably don't understand, I'm pretty busy. You're the only one that's had an issue thus far. Everyone else has been patiently waiting to work with me. Again, I'll let you know when the class is, but I won't be giving a refund." And so Bree sends back a thumbs up and says, "I was removed from the group. I'd like to be in that." At which point somebody from the group sends a screenshot to Bree and it says, "Hi everyone. I know it's been crazy. I've been busy. I'm sure everyone can relate. However, due to someone trying to cause trouble, I'd love to get this rescheduled on the first possible warm day. Still the same situation, full family teaching, etc., blah, blah, blah."
Interesting.
And so then Bree sends back, "I was removed from the group. I'd like to be in that group to make sure I'm kept in the loop on the reschedule." And he says, "I'll keep you up to date on when we reschedule. You don't need to be in the group." I don't like how you came at me today. You can keep your drama to yourself. You'll be notified when a plan is set. Thumbs up emoji. To which Bree reasonably says back to her, "I'm not comfortable with this agreement. I feel being included in the group was part of the investment. In the last 9 months of waiting for this reschedule, I've been busy as well, and I feel that this class is no longer in line with my business needs. If you are flat out refusing to refund me, then I expect to be re-added to the group. My intent was not to cause issues, but after all this time with promises of receiving what I paid for, I can't expect to actually receive the same experience. So if you're unable to provide me the same experience as everyone else, I expect a full refund." To which Heath says, "Please stop. You are becoming extremely annoying. You didn't have to come at me like you did. That was dumb.
This person sounds like a child."
You're exhausting. Your intent wasn't to cause issues, but what you did was tacky, unprofessional, stupid, and unnecessary. But your intent wasn't to cause issues?
We have to get this person on the podcast.
Why couldn't you have just privately messaged me? I'm not refunding you, but I can also refuse to work with you because you aren't even deserving of my time and talent. You tried to come after me publicly for what? Did you think you could make me look bad? You tried. $100 to teach is pretty nice. I could have charged way more. I showed up for the session. It stormed. I sat and gave you all a generous amount of my time. I didn't have to. Nobody else is causing the issues you are, but it's not surprising half the photography community finds you exhausting and just plain drama. Please stop acting like I'm this sketchy photographer. If I was, I wouldn't be half as big as I am. I'm not out here doing stupid shot to ruin my reputation. I told you that you'll be kept in the loop, and I mean that. Nobody else wants to be part of your dramatics. Either take the offer or move on, but I'm not refunding you. You want my honest opinion? I think you want a refund because you think you know what you're doing since you've caught yourself teaching workshops, which is absurd, honestly. Take the help or don't. I don't care, but I don't deal with the bullshit. I've been doing this a long time. I treat everyone as best I can. I do what I can. I'm busy. I'm sorry. But again, you're not getting a refund. So then Bree says, I want a refund. It's been 9 months, no service rendered. Since your responses have been only unprofessional and insulting to me, both professionally and personally, I'm done communicating with you. You have no terms stating that no refunds would be issued. All communications can be sent through my lawyer from now on, who will be in touch. To which Heath says, I'm not scared of a lawyer threat over $100. You're ridiculous. Take your refund and f*** off, honestly. And know this, you shouldn't be teaching. You don't even know what you're doing. And then he sends a $100 refund to Bree.
There you go.
So that's the full story, Dustin.
Thank you for taking us on that journey, Stephen.
What is your takeaway from this?
That we have to get Heath on this podcast immediately.
Gotta get Heath on.
Immediately.
Dustin, if you were running a workshop and you charged $100 for it and it stormed, how long would it take you to reschedule?
I think if I was a professional photographer, let's just say hypothetically, professional photographer.
Hypothetically, if you were actually a professional photographer.
Exactly.
There's nothing we can look at to say whether or not you are in the real world.
Correct.
So we're dealing with hypotheticals here.
Let's journey down the rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole me.
If I was a professional photographer, I would have the foresight and the thought to host a workshop somewhere that could both be shot inside as well as outside in the event of, not ideal weather. Since especially I live here in Indiana, not sunny San Diego, where there's always a good chance of rain, snow, hail, tornado, what have you.
Tornado warnings all day today for me, buddy.
Exactly. So my schedule as Heath's so busy, hard for me to reschedule something. So I would make sure that no matter how bad the weather was, and it had a tornado bunker and we could photograph inside. I mean, I think it was on the episode with Vanessa Joy that you spoke about how one of your big takeaways from her class was taking photos in shitty lighting.
Mm-hmm. Because when I took her class, it was in St. Louis, and the weather was really bad. It was raining, and it was supposed to be a natural light course. It was supposed to be outside, and so she had to improvise, and it was one of the most interesting learning experiences I had, and I felt like I learned so much more from it than I would have if the weather had been good.
So maybe the lesson here is don't reschedule, Heath. Man up.
Or woman up. I mean, we don't need to be sexist about this.
Or woman up. We'll have to get you on the podcast, and we will have to
Find out what's going on at iBats Photography.
Yep.
So, Dustin, hypothetically, you have now scheduled a $100 thing. You have had to cancel for some reason. It doesn't have to be weather. It could be an emergency room visit. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you think you let it go before you reschedule?
That's tricky. I feel like rescheduling something like that would be hard because A, I would have to be available, most importantly.
Mm-hmm.
B, the attendees would have to be available.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say 3 to 4 months, maybe 2 to 3.
But how long would it take for you to communicate with the attendees that you were rescheduling and that you had some dates in mind?
Oh, I would probably reschedule it, have the event, recharge new attendees, and then afterwards say, due to a communication error, we already rehad the event. I'm so sorry that you guys didn't get the email. It must have went to your spam.
That's on you. That's not on me. It went to your spam folder.
I'm just taking a page out of Heath's book here. I think that would be the best route. Yeah.
So let's say you do show up for a workshop. It's supposed to be outside, inclement weather. What sort of locations would you pick in your area where you could shoot inside family photos?
My house.
It's a brand new house. Everything just got done. We haven't put any furniture yet, so the rooms are spacious enough we can do some family photos.
Absolutely.
All around.
100%. Yep.
Nice. I like this. I like where you're going with this.
Yes, Steven.
Have you ever told a client to fuck off?
No, I can't say that I have. No. Doesn't come
I
to
think the
mind.
thing that gets me the most about this is just
That's why we have to get this guy or girl on the podcast, because I need this personality on my earlobes.
oh man, I swear we get like tips from people every once in a while about terrible like photographers acting terribly to other photographers, like educators basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, almost every single time it's somebody in St. Louis.
It's a great city.
I think it is a great city. I don't know that the photographer community is great there though. But I will say, like, all this story broke on the St. Louis area photographers group,
Which Steve coincidentally is a part of.
I joined just so I could see the post. But not this post. I joined the last time something terrible like this came out. So like 5 or 6 months ago. Anyway, that St. Louis photographers community is just St. Louis area photographers. There's so much drama there. Like the people in that group just seem to be like putting each other on blast all the time. And nobody is nice to each other. I'm sure if I was like in the group more, I don't live in St. Louis. So I don't check the group very often. It's only when something terrible surfaces, and it always seems to come from there, that I go and check it out. But it just seems like every time I'm there, it's for bad reasons. Man, I'm real glad Indiana does not have a photographers group where it seems like people just say like terrible things about each other.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring this story up because one, it was newsworthy. It went viral. We posted in the group. A lot of people commented on it already. And two, it was just, I cannot believe when people treat other people like this. And it is confounding to me. And I cannot understand why they think it's okay to treat other people like this. What they think they're going to gain out of treating somebody else like this. Like what happens when you lose your cool and like start insulting somebody who is a client or a potential client of yours? Like, do you just think that disappears into the ether and like you never have to deal with it?
The only thing I can think of, Steve, the only thing in my mind that makes sense is that he or she is the person that you shared, or I think it was Evan Dawson shared the article about this person giving up food for Lent. And they are only consuming beer. And
that person's from Ohio.
They're from Ohio, but they are a photographer in St. Louis, perhaps, hypothetically.
Hypothetically, in a hypothetical situation, we don't know whether or not this person lives in St. Louis or if there's just a part of the group.
And if you live on the East or West Coast, you have no idea how close St. Louis and Ohio are. They could be relatively close in your mind. So we have to assume that maybe they're in a drunken rage all the time during the month of Lent.
So I did post this thing to the group because it was on Reddit. It wasn't just that, like, if it had just been in a Facebook group, like I wouldn't have posted it because like then it's like I'm outing someone, but they were already outed on Reddit, on Twitter. Like I saw it all over the place. Somebody posted, they were doing some digging. It was Alicia Sam Rock, and she found somebody commenting saying they had a similar encounter with Heath many years ago. Heath was doing boudoir shoots for hella cheap when she first started out. When this person got the pics back, the photoshopping was awful. So this person left Heath a review stating so in a polite manner, and also that she used my lingerie photos on her site without my permission. Heath, was livid and straight went off on me. She wrote extremely professional with like the one eyebrow raised, like, yeah, suspect, like it's not professional at all. Sarcastic. So it seems like this person maybe has a history of doing terrible things to other people.
Well, yeah, if they said the things they said to this person, chances are it's not the first time.
There's other people who've been hurt too.
Which is why we need to get them on as an anchor for this podcast.
An anchor? That's, wow. Dragging us straight down into the depths of hell. I mean, the ocean.
The ocean.
Let's do some Q&A.
But Steve,
First up, from Mark Quinn from our very own Facebook group.
Dr. Mark Quinn, Medicine Man.
Dr. Mark Quinn, Medicine Man. Dustin started reading your question off last week, and I cut him off because I was too tired. And I just got to say, thanks for joining us, listeners. It's been a great week. We're so glad to have everybody back, but it's very late once again, and Dustin and I need to go to bed. So I guess we'll see you next week.
But Mark deserves his question to be read, Stephen.
I guess we'll have to get to it next week, bud. That's a show. Let's wrap.
Right, then let's skip ahead to Alyssa.
No, you can't even pronounce her name right. We'll do Mark Quinn's. Dr. Mark Quinn, Medicine Man, says, shot a wedding yesterday in a converted barn. Don't see them much, eh? And the lighting was dreadful. Candle lit with a few fairy lights strung along the walls. It was bordering on dangerously dark. Or the Kaylee dancing. Kaylee bands don't bring lights generally. Got me wondering if anyone has ever been asked by a venue for advice.
Yeah, hire a professional.
Dustin, you seem like... Wait, are you saying Mark's not a professional? Whoa, Dustin.
No, I
Did
think...
you just put Mark on blast?
I think you're reading
Did you just put Mark on blast?
Dr. Mark, I think, is asking the question, does a venue ever ask the photographer who's there for advice, so that other photographers...
To that, the vendor responds...
Correct.
Because it sounds like what you were saying is that the advice you would give to the venue is hire a professional photographer the next time.
Correct.
So what you're saying is Mark Quinn, Dr. Mark Quinn, Medicine Man, is not a professional photographer. That's the driving point here, Dustin. Are you trying to put Mark on blast? Mark, can we see your website? Can you throw it up for us? I want to compare your work next to Dustin's work, and, you know, really, I'm going to blow Dustin's out of the water.
I misread the question. I reread the question again.
Oh, you did? Oh.
He's asking if venues have ever asked photographers for advice on their lighting.
Yes.
That's his question.
Yes, it is. Where were you? You have the question in front of you to read. How did you not know the question?
There were so many ways I wanted to take the question, and unfortunately, Mark didn't ask it in the way I wanted it to be asked.
So the question took you instead, and you disparaged Mark. Wow.
Dr. Mark Quinn, no venues have ever asked me.
Whoa. Before you can say anything else, I think Mark deserves an apology.
I'm apologizing, Dr. Mark Quinn, Medicine Man. You are the most professional of photographers I have ever come in contact with.
Very good. Very good. Okay, now you can say whatever you want. That's been Parenting 101 from everyone's favorite Stephen Van Elk. That's how you do it with kids. You get an insincere apology from them before you let them do anything else.
There you go. But yeah, Mark, you just need to learn how to be a better photographer if you're going to shoot in these.
You son of a bitch.
Oh. Yeah, just gotta get more light. So what we do in barns, like the one you're describing, is we bring a video light. We throw that thing up high near the DJ, near the band, add a little bit of constant light, make focusing a little bit easier for us. And then we just bounce flash like we would in any other venue, and then we just color correct in post. Take a little bit of that orange channel out in Lightroom.
Mm-hmm.
Easy peasy.
See, what I like to do when I'm in a dark venue like this is I like to get those really good artistic shots of those inky blacks where you can't really make out any of the people. And then I deliver those and I say, this is my artist's vision.
See, Steve shoots all off-camera flash receptions anyway, so it doesn't really matter if he's in a black hole or a white box. It doesn't really affect Steven.
That is mostly true. That is correct.
Mm-hmm. So that's his answer.
Dustin,
Dr.
you
Mark
seem
Quinn.
to me like somebody who would give advice to a venue, whether they ask for it or not. So I want to hear your best stories about giving advice to venues.
Well, I've had venues ask me for advice, which is what I thought the question was in regards to. There's a venue here in Fort Wayne that is one of those kind of like the Regent Tower type venue, where it's like a skyscraper type vibe, not super high ceilings.
Not in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, it's the only one we have. And I said like the Regent's Tower. Not as cool as the Regent's Tower, but like it.
I don't think there is a building in Indy that would be considered a skyscraper. Our tallest one is Salesforce Tower, which is like 41 stories. Is that skyscraper height yet?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Okay, I guess we got one.
So Regent's Tower, for those of you out there who are not from the Indianapolis, Indiana area, is a venue inside of a skyscraper. It's like an entire floor. And couples tend to book these venues because of their views of the cityscape through the windows. Now, Regent's Tower does have a rooftop balcony, which is really great, but the venue that I'm referring to here in Fort Wayne does not have a rooftop balcony. So couples oftentimes have their ceremonies here, floor-to-ceiling windows, but then most photographers that shoot there don't know how to properly expose so that you can see anything outside those windows. And this venue
is there anything outside the windows more important than the bride and groom on the wedding day? I think case closed. Steve nailed it. You're doing it wrong.
Well, so the venue gets a lot of complaints from couples when they get their photos back from certain photographers where they are like, I love our photos are great, but they're, we booked this venue because of the view and we don't have a single photo kind of illustrating that view from the windows.
And then the venue says, here is Dustin McKibben's card. He's got great photos where you can see the rest of the city.
Exactly.
And he will Photoshop that into the windows in your shots.
Precisely.
All right, Dustin. So continue on with your story.
Yeah, and just the fact that I think oftentimes, I don't really know where I was going with this, but just that I think venues do appreciate a photographer that can illustrate and capture their venue in the way that the venue owners and venue managers and people that work there kind of envision the venue itself being captured. So I think it's important to share those images with the venues if you feel like you did a good job after the wedding. So that way...
way far away from what Mark was asking about now. We've gone in a completely different direction.
That's what we do.
Dustin's now advocating for sharing your photos for exposure. Yeah, don't get paid for those photos. Just give them one.
Well, you can put your logo on them. You can watermark the shit out of them, but just
That's
show...
still exposure, Dustin.
Yeah.
Exposing for exposure. There we go. Mark, here's what I would do. If you're shooting in a place with just dreadful lights, it sounds like this one was a barn, right? So barns are going to have big old barn doors. So you go up and you just open those big old barn doors. And now you don't have any light in there, but you need light. So next thing you got to do, you take your car and you just pull your car up, let it idle right next to the venue, and just put the high beams on pointing straight at the dance floor. It's going to create a real nice atmosphere, and you're going to be able to have all that good light you need, and you can focus.
Sounds reasonable.
I mean, I don't see that there's any other solution that could work for this.
I've done that before.
Jen and I have...
I've used my high beams for a sparkler exit.
Yeah. Jen and I have from time to time been asked questions by different vendors. Like, I notice our photos in this area don't come out well. Is there something we could do?
Yeah, you could come to my workshop. It's $100. I host it in St. Louis every year around rainy season.
And any time a venue or another vendor asks for any sort of advice when it comes to running their business, you want to be helpful and you want to say something.
Do you?
And so sometimes you do. And what that's usually met with, from my very limited experience with this, is the person saying something to you like, that would never work, or we can't do that. And it's always something like, no, I wasn't actually asking you because I wanted any advice. This was a rhetorical thing. I just wanted you to know that I feel your pain, That's just been my experience with different DJs, vendors, other people. Nobody gives a crap about your photography. Nobody cares. Like, they're doing their job and they just want you to do your job. Mm-hmm. And they don't care if their job is making your job 1,000,000 times harder on the day, unless they're like the day of coordinator or the wedding planner. Those people typically end up caring because they care for the wedding as a whole and for the client. So
okay, makes sense. But does it?
But does it?
Could it?
So what's the worst thing that could happen if you give advice to a vendor?
They could die. They could literally die, Steven.
They could die on the spot. They just have a heart attack. Your advice was so good, they realized how bad they'd been doing, and it caused an immense amount of stress. And then, boom, just like that, heart stops. They can't take the anxiety.
Like if they're like, how do you get this shot that they're asking for? And I say, I just fly my drone inside. Next weekend, they fly their drone inside, hit something, the entire building collapses, they die.
Yeah. You know how those buildings in Fort Wayne are built where just one little 3-pound drone could take the whole thing down. Yeah.
One little Mavic Air pops the golf dome.
You know, if it's in the right position, it's just everyone's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And when a golf dome gets popped, it is like a giant fart just letting out for like 5 minutes straight.
Out comes the vendor. Dead.
Yeah.
That's why you hire Dustin McKibben.
He's the only one that can fly that drone inside the giant fart dome.
Yes, this is true.
Dustin, Alicia Sam Rock from our very own Facebook group asks, how do we feel about people selling presets? I realize every photographer, blogger, and their dog seems to be selling Lightroom presets these days. And is this lame to do when you barely have 1,000 followers? And then it's the emoji of the monkey with its hands over its eyes. See no evil. Or does no one actually care?
I'm so glad Alicia asked this question because Steven and I are really excited to announce we will be rolling out the wedding photo hangover preset collection. We're starting off with just one. This is one that we're really, really proud of. What this image will do is essentially you do all of your editing, you hit the preset, and then just resets it back to original camera raw. It's something special, let me tell you.
The most special.
It's kind of like a redo.
Just like a big take two on the day.
Yeah, it's sort of like you had that drink, you had a little too much, you took the photo, and now it's letting you have a second chance at it.
Yeah, you blacked out, you woke up, and you didn't remember where you were or what happened to all your work. That's what our preset does.
Yep, that will be for sale on our Patreon.
Oh, you made us a Patreon?
That's super secret, Steve. I'm not even inviting you.
Snap. Dustin's keeping all that money for himself. Don't subscribe to the Patreon.
Or do.
Or don't.
Or do.
Alicia, I think it's a great idea to start selling your presets. And, I think if you're going to start selling your presets, you sell them in the Wedding Hangover Facebook group. No, I think if you're going to start selling your presets, we could make them available on the Wedding Hangover website, and Dustin and I will just take a 90% cut right off the top of all the profits made from that. This sounds like the best idea ever. We want to say this offer is available not just to Alicia, but to anybody who makes anything in our Facebook group and our community, people who aren't in those things but just want to sell something. We will sell it all on our website, and we'll just take a real slim 90% cut off the top of the revenue.
Let us be your Amazon.
Yeah. Dustin, have you ever bought presets?
I think I've bought the Mastin Labs ones. I think I might have gotten a little bite of the Visco bug about 5 years ago, but I think that might be the only two I've ever purchased. I think I still use the Visco one for the base of my black and whites.
A lot of people use the Visual Supply Company stuff. But didn't they say recently they're getting out of the preset game entirely and they're just focusing on their iPhone app?
Could be. I know they have a pretty big following on their iPhone app that they kind of turned into a bit of a social media type thing, if I have heard correctly.
I used to use it all the time, like back when I took photos a lot with my iPhone. But then I just kind of stopped.
I think the next thing, Alicia, is the iPhone photo presets. I think that's the direction I'm seeing a lot of photographers go.
Don't stop at making presets, Alicia. Just make an entire app for your iPhone, and then you can sell those filters to more people than just, professional photographers. Because when you are selling presets, you're really limiting yourself to just professional photographers. and, cast a wider net.
Or cast a smaller net.
Or cast a wider net. And Dustin and I
cast a
will
wider net with holes.
Dustin and I will promote the app on the podcast and on our website, and we'll just take a slim 90% cut off the top of your revenue.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Apple's going to take 30% straight off the top, and then we'll take 90% of what's left.
And then that leaves you, I'm not great with math, I think that leaves you with 2%.
Yeah, after, the credit card charges and everything like that. Yeah.
Producer fees and storage, hosting, shipping, all that.
It's going to be great. You're going to be a millionaire. Easily. And Dustin and I will be 9 millionaires.
Hopefully.
Dustin, let's take one from a random Facebook group. One last question, just real fast. You got a good one for us?
I was looking. Abby from the Facebook groups asked this question, Stephen.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about all types of advertising, wedding shows, Google, Facebook, Instagram, Wedding Wire, The Knot, print, radio, billboards, sending pigeons, etc., etc. How much is too much to spend on one booking and or one lead? What is an amount you would be happy to spend per booking and or per lead? So I think what they're asking, Stephen, is client acquisition cost or customer acquisition cost, as it's commonly referred to. Stephen, do you know your customer acquisition cost?
Millions and millions of man hours. Just all of my time spent on social media, just DMing, eggplant emojis to everyone I see and saying, if you like this, you'll love my photography.
Yeah.
It has worked not at all for me, but I'm still trying.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get it out there. I got to get the brand out there. And that's the important thing, is that brand recognition. I want people, when they see an aubergine, when they see an eggplant emoji, I want them to think about me.
Do you and Jennifer have a marketing budget for the year?
Yes. And it gets smaller every year.
It gets smaller every year.
We used to, I think when we first got started, I think we ran ads on the Wedding Wire and The Knot. One year we tried running ads with Wedding Day, another with Perfect Wedding Guide. And in the end, we found most of those things didn't work. The stuff we're finding that works the most for us in terms of advertising is connecting with other vendors. So we're trying to, last year and this year, kind of step up our game a little bit with showing other vendors love. And so what that translates into is a lot of going out for coffee or for drinks with other vendors. And Jen is the one who gets to do all this fun stuff, and I don't get to do any of it. Yeah.
Last time I checked, I'm a vendor and in weddings. When does that love train come down my station?
As soon as you're not our direct competition.
So to rephrase, you guys are only showing love to vendors who are not in photography, right?
No, that's not true.
Oh, it's not true.
Just not to you.
Just not to me. Okay. Just making sure all the advice is being given with full transparency here.
I connect with you every single week. I spend more time with you, doing work for you on this podcast. Think about all of the free man hours you have gleaned from me and from this relationship, just editing and editing and editing this podcast, getting the Dustin name out there, the Dustin brand out there, the big burrito into people's mouths.
Yes.
Yeah?
This is true. I've gleaned so much in return for all of those man hours.
What has all that exposure got you? Thanks for listening to another episode of the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast. Okay, do you want to really say what is your marketing spend?
We try to spend between, I like to think of it as, whatever our mean wedding price point is. So for us, it's about $3,500. And so if we can try and spend $3,500 a year to get the bulk of our weddings, then I think we've done pretty well. So for most people, that seems like a lot of money. But to me, if like you can just book one extra wedding, that covers your marketing dollars for the year.
You just do one wedding for free every year. And you'll be thinking about that real hard when you're doing that one wedding that you just really regret taking. And it won't always be the last wedding of the year. It won't always be the first wedding. You know, more than likely it'll be right in the middle of your season.
You just have to tell the bride
who has been very crappy to you. And you'll just be sitting there thinking to yourself, this was the one that paid for all the ads to get all the other ones who I also dislike working with.
I think as wedding photographers, at least I do this. I don't know if you and Jen do this. We justify spending based on weddings. Do you guys do this? Like, oh, that trip is just one wedding. Or, oh, that couch is half a wedding.
No, that magical thinking is not something I do.
See, I do it all the time. And my wife has started doing it too. And it was fun when I did it. But now she's like, Dustin, we can afford that trip. That's just one more wedding. Like,
yeah. Jen does that to me sometimes. She'll be like, that's just like 2 or 3 family shoots. And I'm just like, no, that's so much work. That's so much work.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it. Why do we work? So Dustin, you shoot one extra wedding every year so you can afford to market for the rest of your weddings.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
I think when Jen and I first started, it was close to that much money that we were spending on advertising, like with stuff like The Knot, Wedding Wire, Wedding Day Magazine.
And that doesn't necessarily need to be advertising in the traditional sense. That can be like making a coffee table book to drop off to a venue. It can be
doing client gifts at the end of the year,
buying muffins to throw at your best friend's door. It can be, you know, putting forks in their yard.
That spell out weddinghangover.com.
So that when they walk out their door on a Saturday, they slip and fall and they become all bloody and then they have to call you to shoot their wedding for them. It can be any number of marketing techniques.
It can be to hire that man to kidnap your friend the night before he's supposed to shoot a wedding. It can be to hire that man to murder your friend the night before he's supposed to. Where are we going with this?
You took this real dark, real fast.
You took it real dark. I'll just set up this trap outside my friend's house. They'll get injured and have to go to the ER, and then I'll shoot their wedding for them. Mm-hmm. It's an extra $1,000 right there.
Yeah. All it cost me was $5 worth of plastic forks.
As somebody who last year stepped on a piece of glass, pulled it out of his foot, and then shot a wedding.
That's what made me think of this.
I'm going to tell you, these plastic forks are not going to keep any photographer from doing their job. This is an utterly ridiculous plan.
Well, most photographers are not as intense and hell-bent on capturing the day as you, Steven.
Yeah, that was a...
I wake up and my back feels a little off, and I'm like, not today, Satan. Not today, Satan.
Gonna send Corinne out for this one. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast with Dustin and Steve. If you want to help us out, jump on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star review. We only want the very best of the best reviews because we have the very best of the best listeners. That's all of you who should be leaving us reviews.
Consistently or inconsistently.
If you want to connect, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Wedding Photo Hangover and on Twitter at WedPicHangover. Dustin is on Instagram at Dustin_McKibben. And Steven is at Steven Van Elk. If you want to get involved with the awesome community of listeners, and you should join the Wedding Hangover Facebook group. But if you really want to warm our hearts, head on over to anchor.fm/wedding photo hangover, and you can sign up to support us for as little as 99 cents a month.
Only 99 cents? Steve, that's all?
It's extremely helpful to us.
Wow.
And to the making of this podcast. It helps us to buy new equipment, to upgrade stuff. You know, we
feed our children most importantly.
Feed Dustin's children. He's not making as much money this year as he has in years past for his wedding photography. He needs all the help he can get. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time your head is pounding, your limbs feel like dead weight, and your entire being aches for the sweet embrace of death. That's right, next Sunday after you shoot another wedding. Yeah.
St. Patrick's. I was just thinking it'd be St. Patrick's Day when this comes out.
Oh, this was our St. Patrick's Day episode?
Yeah.
Quick, let me get all my... let me go back and find all my questions about leprechauns. I can't believe I missed out on the St. Patrick's Day episode.
I know.
Man.
I was just doing the math in my head.
Well, we are not mathematicians, so, if
That's
this
true.
was a Photographer's Crack podcast, maybe we could have got this thing done, Pulled some Ross Eaglesham and done advanced calculus, but that's just not us, buddy.
We can only dream of landscapes and
only
Scotland,
dream.
Ireland weddings. I wish I could pull out an accent like those chaps.
Oh, you know what doesn't... man, we're going to do some follow out. Do you know what follow out is?
That's where we... Goodbye!
No. Oh, no. Follow out is another term. This one's not coined by John Siracusa. This one's coined by Mike Hurley and Jason Snell, I believe. Follow out is where we discuss something that didn't happen on our podcast, but happened on another podcast. Dustin, I don't know if you know about this, but on the most recent episode of the Wedding Photographers Unite podcast, they did a section where they discussed what alcohol they were drinking.
Copycats.
Oh, they credited us. They said, we're taking this from the Wedding Photo Hangover. We're doing something they do. And guess what, Andy Buscemi said, the man himself, the professor of pontification, I believe, is what people call him.
Okay.
He said that he was drinking a great New York red wine for a great New York man.
Andy Buscemi. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue quite like your little shtick.
Great New York red wine for a great New York man? That rolls right off the tongue.
No, followed by his name.
Like Andy Buscemi.
Yeah.
Like Andy Buscemi.
Buscemi. Nope.
Yeah.
Doesn't.
No,
Sorry.
it was beautiful. Neil was drinking a Chardonnay from J.W. Morris.
What, were they watching The Bachelor while they recorded this episode?
This is my favorite part right at the end. Then they go to Jimmy, recent guest Jimmy
Kimmel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Jimmy said that, man after my own heart, he said he had been drinking old fashions the past few nights, and oh man, that warmed my heart, right here. I love a good old fashioned. And he goes, but his throat was getting a little ragged, so he had to switch it up tonight. So he was drinking a Glenfiddich and a Woodford Reserve. That's right. He was like, I'll have a Glenfiddich, and then I'll also have this bourbon, this Woodford Reserve. I can't choose just one.
Sounds about right. Sounds about like him.
I had to figure out how to live life like Jimmy Ferrara.
Well, if you come visit me, Stephen, there's still a unopened bottle of bourbon sitting here.
Bourbon or a bourbon barrel aged Dragon's Milk beer that you already drank and are now lying to me about.
No, this is bourbon. Just straight up bourbon.
I love bourbon.
I know. It's right here. It literally has your name on it. Sitting on my shelf. My brand new shelf that I built in my brand new house to hold my brand new bourbon for you.
Did you build the bourbon too?
No.
18 years ago? You wrote
But
Stephen
I did.
Van Elk on it. I will find him someday and befriend him.
But I did photograph at a distillery this week. Did I already tell you this story?
No.
I photographed at a distillery this week, which was pretty cool. So I am in the talks with them, early talks, about making a wedding photo hangover drink, like a concoction.
Cool. Very cool.
But they don't do bourbon. They think bourbon is too trendy. So they're trying to, because of how long browns, as they call them, brown alcoholic beverages, take to make, they're trying to think past what, so they think ryes are like the next big thing. So they've been doing a lot of ryes because I think people really like the sweets of a bourbon, and they're going to like the spice of a rye beverage.
Oh gosh.
I don't know that that's accurate at all, but
I don't think that's accurate at all.
That's what they said. So
I got done with a month of Canadian rye cocktails, and I got to tell you, all I could think afterwards was I want to get that sweet, sweet bourbon back in this body.
So yeah, I'm in the early talks. I told him next time you come to town, we would schedule a meeting with them and see
Whoa, you are scheduling meetings with the distillery? I could be in town tomorrow if I had known that. I could be in town in 2 hours if I had known that.
Yeah, well, next time you're here.
In 2 hours, I will be there.
But grab a bottle of it and try their stuff and let me know. I need to find where they sell it and get a bottle. And
Okay, we're getting a little bit too insular here, so let's just say goodbye.
Bye.
It's great talking to you. She looked up to see me right like 2 feet away from her, saying, "Are you okay?" And she just goes, "Ah, oh shit."
Yeah, if I saw you and I was like, oh my God, I'm married to you, I'd be a little, yeah. That's why I don't drink on this podcast anymore.
You're drinking tonight.
Because I saw the super ranty podcast we were going to be putting.
Wedding Photo Hangover was edited this week by Steve Van Elk of Bespoke Tone. Go to Bespoke Tone for all of your photo, video, and audio editing needs. Woo-wee!